In the meantime, we'll play one of our smaller documentaries so that you can see the amazing stories of our African entrepreneurs who are doing amazing things across the continent. Thank you so much.
And then in 2022, we qualified for the follow-on funding with partnership with the European Commission, GIZ, and the Tony Elumelu Foundation. We used that funding to move into a digital transformation for our business. So right now, we are building a first of its kind fashion exchange platform in Africa, if I dare say. It's called Red Exchange. So Red Exchange has rental, resale, and repair of fashion items. So what this means is we're empowering millions of Nigerians who are fashionistas to make money from their idle fashion. And apart from making money, fashion companies who have off-season items to sell can sell on the platform at a discount. And then at the click of a button, you can request the mobile tailor to tailor your garment. So what this means is that we're extending the life cycle of the garment in your wardrobe while saving money and also helping, empowering so many women by making money from their wardrobe. So this is pretty much the Airbnb of fashion. Thank you to the Tony Elumelu Foundation for empowering Red Button.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Ramin Toloui, and I'm the founder at Detail Africa. Detail Africa essentially designs and produces bags and accessories in Nigeria. So in 2019, when I was selected for the TF program, I had just left EY not too long ago. So in my head, I was like, you know what can you teach me here that I don't know already? But I would say it has been one of my most intense programs. It was very, very detailed. I still use the business plan till date, right? It was a very, very interesting, beneficial program. As for the funding, that really helped us in terms of being able to get inventory for that period. And mind you, the next year was actually that was the COVID year. So that actually really helped us to be a bit more, I would say, resilient that year. From that time up to now, Detail Africa has been able to grow by over about 500%. We currently employ about 15 people, essentially from underserved communities. I would like to always proudly say that we actually pay each of them above 300% the minimum wage, which has really, really changed their lives and the lives of their own families and all of that. So also, what the TF did was that it kind of opened up my eyes to a bigger market size. So back then in 2019, we were just producing for our own brand, but because of the traction of the brand, what we now saw was that there were other brands coming to say, you know what, guys, help us to produce too. So we're able to extend the brand and then create a company called Craftlink. So Craftlink is essentially a job tech platform where it trains people and then connects them to employment opportunities via production lines. Through Craftlink, we've actually trained over about 25 people, and we have about 15 people working there full time. All in all, I would say it was a very amazing experience at TF, and it definitely took me on to much, I would say, greater heights. And I'm very, very thankful for the opportunity and also being able to speak here. Thank you.
Thank you very much to all our alumni for sharing their story. And so now we're going to dive right in. I will introduce your chief host today, the CEO of the Tony Elumelu Foundation, Ms. Somachi Chris Asoloka. And then, chief host, and then a special guest, the guy we put out all the stops for, Mr. Ramin Toloui. He's the Assistant Secretary of the U.S. Bureau of Economic and Business Affairs. So also we have overflow rooms downstairs. So to all of you downstairs and those 2 rooms downstairs, good morning and welcome.
Thank you, Ruka. Thank you, Ruka. And thank you, TF. And I think as Iruka has done so warmly, welcome, welcome to all of our guests from far and wide. It's not often we use our Dominic Room auditorium like this, so we're very excited to have all you familiar and not so familiar yet faces in the room. Welcome, welcome. And to now my good friend, the Assistant Secretary of Economic and Business Affairs, welcome to Nigeria. It's your first time, right?
Yes, first time, and delighted to be here. Thank you for the warm welcome, and we got to speak with some of the alums earlier today, so it's great to hear about their experiences and the other work that the foundation is supporting.
Exactly. Thank you so much. I know that the Biden-Harris administration is really prioritizing Africa. I think way back in March, the vice president was in Accra, where I met with her, and then Lusaka in Zambia, where our founder, Mr. Elumelu, met with her. So we know that Africa is big for this US admin. What opportunities do you think exist for African creative entrepreneurs, and especially those in Nigeria?
I mean, there's really enormous potential. Before coming here to Nigeria, I was in South Africa, and the creative energy in both places, the entrepreneurs that are working in the area of tech, in film, in fashion, is very evident. We had in South Africa the AGOA Forum, that's the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act, which provides opportunities for African companies to export to the United States at zero tariffs. And during that forum, actually at the gala dinner, was a feature of African fashion. It was the first runway fashion show I've ever been to, actually, and highlighting that kind of creativity. Of course, right now here in Lagos is the Africa International Film Festival that we're at the U.S. government are happy to help support. So here are some examples of creativity that are happening on the continent. On the way over from South Africa, I watched Black Book, this Netflix most successful Nigerian film production that was on the top 10 English language globally for 5 weeks. So it's really a matter of bringing some of this creativity to a larger market, to the global market, because what's being produced here in Africa by African minds is something which has global traction. It captures the imagination. And one thing that we in the US government are trying to do, and I know that the foundation is trying to do, is to lower the impediments, eliminate the barriers for that creativity to get to a broader audience.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Exactly, and the conversation we just had downstairs in Susan Room, we've heard from our own alumni around the opportunities and the constraints that continue to exist in this sector. What do you think you're most excited about the future of the African creative sector?
Well, I mean, what always gets you excited is actually just hearing the stories of individual entrepreneurs and the problems that they're working on, and how inspiring that can be. So when we were in, before we arrived here, we talked to a South African entrepreneur that was working on taking cameras and putting it into microscopes in rural areas so that blood disorders could be diagnosed immediately, because the images could be transmitted to medical professionals in a centralized place, and care could be rendered, as opposed to a delay of weeks, which could result in the patient even dying. Here, seeing yesterday at the African Creative Market, I had the opportunity to talk to a number of the Nigerian creators and hearing about the things that they're working on, and also the collaborations that they're formulating with other African artists and also with artists in other countries. Of course, some of the recent collaborations between Nigerian artists and American artists have been nominated for Academy Awards, and have received lots of acclaim. So again, when you hear the stories and the individual things that entrepreneurs here are working on, creatives are working on, it just, you want to tell that story more broadly.
And you've had a very illustrious career across academia, private sector, now public sector. I think from all of that experience and the expertise you've garnered over the many years, what one advice do you have for Nigerian creatives?
Well, one thing, before taking this job at the State Department, I taught at Stanford University. And one thing that I think I knew before, but I had this lesson reaffirmed, is never underestimate what young people are capable of. It's really, you can be constantly surprised of how much energy, how much passion, and how much resilience young people are willing to invest in their ideas. So really, I have two-part advice. First of all, learn from people who have more experience. There's always more to learn, and go and ask people for help. That's actually one thing that I've learned in my life is very important, is when you ask people for help, they then become invested in your success. They, for one, want to help. It feels good to help people. And our guest here, our host here, Tony Elumelu, can attest to that, I'm sure, that it just feels very good to offer assistance and help other people have a leg up. And when you render that assistance, then you become invested in their success. So ask for help. And then the second thing I will say is you pair that with persistence. And if you think you have an idea that maybe the world doesn't understand yet, just keep at it. I loved hearing the story of one of our entrepreneurs that the foundation has supported that described how she applied 3 times to get support from the foundation. And so I think combining that humility of learning from people who've had more experience with that, belief in yourself of when you have a new perspective on the world, hold on to it and don't be dissuaded from it.
Right before we got here, as we were walking up the steps, the assistant secretary said, Somachi, could you reduce the number of questions you ask me so we have more time to open it up to the audience? I'd really like to hear from some of the superstars that we have in the room today. So at this point, I'd like to invite the audience to ask questions. Please let's not be shy. He desperately wants to hear from you. And we'll go around now with the microphone to ask questions from the audience. I think we have a few hands in the back, yes.
And remember, I miss being on a college campus, so this is a lot of fun.
Okay, so if you could introduce yourself, your name and what you do, and then you ask your question.
Good morning, dear guests to Nigeria. I hope you've been having a good time. Good morning, CEO. And good morning, everyone in the room. It's good to be here. My name is Dr. Ajiboye Oluwakemi. I'm the founder of Crystal Shine Skin Clinic. We focus on corrective and restorative skincare. So I'm just going to get on to the conversation by picking on what our guest had said. Never underestimate what the young people can do. So I'm going to take myself as a case study. In 2018, I was nominated by Tony Elumelu Foundation for the TEF program. So I had no idea what business was all about. I was busy studying all over the world. And I came into Nigeria. I just wanted to do business to cater for my needs. Then I was nominated. And one key thing that I took away from the foundation in 2018 was I should believe in myself. if someone could believe in me, then I think I've got no other choice than to also believe in myself. So I think that helped me. And the seed funding that I got, I was able to use it to brand our product. And I dare to say that the product, I mean the branding that I did, it really took me places. Doors were opened, and I mean international doors. I represented Nigeria on international platforms. I was in Paris to represent Nigeria. I was in Morocco to represent Nigeria. I was in South Africa to represent Nigeria, courtesy the branded product. Because the product was so, branded to international standard that anywhere you see this product, the first impression will be, wow. I'm sorry, I'm going to ask my question. I'm just laying
it's
the
fine.
foundation. I came prepared. It's taking me a whole lot of energy to do this, and it's very deliberate for me. So you would kindly indulge me. If you knew me, I'm not this person that would just rise up in a crowd and start talking. No, that's not me. So I was able to get a lot of opportunities, courtesy the branded product, $5,000 that I was given. And from there, I established my factory. I established my clinic as well, without borrowing from any organization. I've bought about 3 buildings worth 500 million naira without borrowing a single penny from any organization. Never estimate the power of what a young person can do. That is what I'm arriving at. Recently, I was nominated by the U.S. Embassy to represent Nigeria for IVLP in the U.S. So while in the U.S., I had the opportunity of visiting UCLA. I was at Chatham University, and I was at Pittsburgh University in the U.S. And I saw the innovative way through which entrepreneurship is being introduced into the students' curriculum. Now to my question. How can you encourage our students, especially our tertiary institution students, to also take, to take part of whatever it is the U.S. Citizens are doing in the innovative entrepreneurship space? For example, exchange programs. If you could come up with exchange programs for our students in Nigeria, so they could be enlightened and they could be initiated enough into entrepreneurship, and they do not have to, graduate and join the labor force, seeking job that isn't there. How can you make this happen for our students in Nigeria? That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There are so many things I would like to say about the various issues that you raised. The first thing I will say, one of my mentors once told me that short conversations can have a big impact on your life. And we never know what engagement, what interaction, what conversation, what moment may actually change the trajectory, open our mind to new possibilities, give us new skills, etc. And so really one thing that the US government is trying to do is to promote more of those interactions. We hosted last year the US-Africa Leaders Summit, which wasn't just a discussion among governments, but bringing together the private sector, bringing together young people, the African diaspora, to have these kinds of conversations and bring together the people who have experience with younger people who are at an earlier stage and try to find those connections. I'm very glad that you mentioned this International Visitor Leadership Program, because this is a key tool that we have to bring students, young people here in Africa, even people who are later in their career, to the United States to engage with professionals, whether it's in the area of intellectual property protection, through creative industries, etc. One privilege I had last night was to meet Mama Nike, at an event hosted by the Consul General. And I learned something extraordinary. She was IVLP in 1974, the year I was born. Okay. And I'm not going to say that, to attribute her success to that. That would, she's someone who could be successful in a whole variety of circumstances. But one thing I also learned is that she has come and taught 15 different times at US universities since that time. And so when we facilitate these partnerships, hopefully that experience had a small role to play in her development, but also look at how much the American people and American young people have benefited from that partnership. So I couldn't agree with you more about the things that your comments pointed to, which is the importance of that support at an early stage, how you never know exactly which of those interactions are going to be the ones that actually produce meaning. And that's why we need to try to generate more of those. I'll make one other comment. Another way that we try to promote this is use the State Department platform to highlight exceptional examples of innovation. We just had, the last thing I did before coming on this trip to the African continent was participate in something called the Secretary's Award for Corporate Excellence, which is an annual award that we give at a ceremony with the Secretary of State to US companies that are exemplifying American values abroad. And so a couple of the honorees, we had 5 honorees this year. One of them was a company called Kentegra, which is using biological innovation for more sustainable fertilizer and soil health. And that was in Kenya. Another one was Ampersand, which is finding a way of having a fleet of electric motorbikes on the African continent in Rwanda and Kenya. And so we're using the State Department platform to try to elevate these examples of success and promote exactly the types of interactions and exchanges that your question was describing. Yeah. No, Thank you for that.
No, I think, Assistant Secretary, I think that was spot on. At the US Africa Leaders Summit last December, the foundation co-hosted the opening reception with the Secretary of State and the State Department, and we were able to bring in 5 of our high-flying alumni to speak to the US State Department and the other guests in the room, and to share some of their successes being Tony Elumelu Foundation alumni, and the opportunities for additional investment, and some of their stories. So I think that was a phenomenal outing for the foundation and also our alumni. So I do agree wholeheartedly that this Biden-Harris administration is really prioritizing Africa and our MSMEs. I think we have a few more hands in the back.
Oh, there we go. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dakori Egbuson Akonde. I'm a Nigerian actor and the CEO and founder of Dakori Beauty, which is a natural skincare line. And I really just wanted to speak from the creative industry. Hi, hon. I've been in the film industry now for about 25 years. A lot of my colleagues are here. I'm so happy to see them. And one thing I know is Nollywood has become a beacon of light from Nigeria, really highlighting our creativity, our culture, and everything that's fantastic about us, especially when you're dealing with a world that demonizes Africa, demonizes our culture, makes us feel like we're inferior, which we all know is not true, right? There we go. So I would love to see more collaborations between the American film industry, the British, everywhere, but of course you're from the US. And I feel like there are a lot of impediments to that. I've lived in Los Angeles for a few years, done the rounds, auditions, and all of this stuff, and always found, this barrier. It's like an invisible barrier. And it was really interesting that you mentioned Nigerian music, because now, because of those collaborations with the American artists, it has just brought out much more of a spotlight on the Nigerian music industry. So I would love to see if there's a way that we can connect the dots and really do business, because it's not aid, it's actually business. It's a billion-dollar industry, and I'd love to see how that could work, if you could help us. Thank you.
No, thank you for that. This, one of the priority areas of follow-up from the Africa Leaders Summit that I'm focused on is the creative industries. We've sponsored a number, we're sponsoring 4 this year, roundtables on the African continent on the creative industries. Our first one was in Nairobi. This is our 3rd one here in Lagos. And what we are looking at is exactly what you're describing. What are the impediments to the growth of the creative industries? Because the raw talent, the ideas, the creativity, the energy, the dynamism, that's there. But what are the impediments to that industry being an engine for economic growth? And it's not just, the creative. It's all of those supporting concentric circles around the creative that benefit, because to do a film production, you need the crew, camera people, you need the people to feed and house those people, It really has the potential to have a big impact. So what are those impediments? I mean, one of them, and it was a focus of our day at the Africa Creative Market yesterday, was on protection of intellectual property. So in order to encourage more ideas and people to invest their blood, sweat, and tears in developing those ideas and commercializing them, you need to make sure that the product of their creative efforts is protected. And so that's one thing we would like to work with the Nigerian government, partner with the Nigerian government on what they can learn about how the system of protection of intellectual property in the United States works. To encourage and allow Nigerian creators, whether they're in tech or in the creative industries, to benefit. The other thing that we heard when we did this roundtable with creatives echoed what you just said about it's not about money, it's not about, they said it's not about capital, that there's capital here in this country. It's about the other features of the enabling environment, sharing the experiences of Americans in, given the long history of film and music and the creative industries, what are the steps to commercial success at each stage of that process? And so it goes back to the first question of how to promote more of these interactions. At the Africa International Film Festival, we've sponsored again experts, global media leaders from California to come here to Nigeria to share their experiences with exactly that objective of trying to build up the expertise and the human capital, transferring some of that knowledge to people who are working here. So I couldn't agree more. One thing I like to say when I do these trips is I have an excellent team that supports me in Washington, here in the country, in Nigeria and Lagos and Abuja. And so a lot of these things they can tell me, but it's different when I come and I hear it from you. I can leave then with a conviction that is different to hear it from the source. So you should feel good about that and respect that our team is advancing this every day and they know what they're doing. But it's also beneficial for me as one of the leaders in the department to hear it and be able to carry that message into the work that the US government is doing. Thank you.
I want to chip in here, Assistant Secretary. Can we incentivize Hollywood to perhaps feature more local African talent in their films? Is that possible? Is that too far-fetched?
Well, I don't think it's too far-fetched. I don't know if that's something I can do. I don't have that much influence in Hollywood. But it is something, we can do. I spoke with some senior industry leaders in that U.S. entertainment industry before coming here because I wanted to hear from them, knowing that, in Nigeria, in South Africa, there's a desire for more of that engagement from and collaboration from top entertainment companies. What are the impediments? And they mentioned the protection of intellectual property. They mentioned the infrastructure, sound stages, and other production facilities. And I'm pleased to say, when I've been here, I've heard of some efforts to build those facilities in Nigeria and allow more of that value added from the production to be here. So, what I can do from my perspective is, again, tell the stories of the interactions I've had with people in the U.S. Entertainment industry, and then try to find opportunities and encourage you all to tell your stories. For example, I used to go, before COVID, I went to the Sundance Film Festival. This is before I had any government job. This is when I was enjoying my Stanford life. And that's an opportunity to have, more Nigerian representation there going to that festival and then to be represented in that festival. And so we'll look for opportunities to make that connections, but I also, one thing I tell the counterparts that I've met with here is encouraging them to, jump in, because those are good opportunities.
And I think that the South African movie industry has leveraged this, I think, more aggressively than we have in Nigeria. So to get your commitment and your support, then when you do go back, we'll continue this conversation to see some action and get some of our Nollywood talent the global stage that they so deserve. Okay, we have so many hands up. I love this. Let's go around. Femi, let's. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. My name is Uchabo, and I'm a beneficiary of Tony Elumelu Foundation Seed Capital in 2019. Before then, I used to refer to myself as a filmmaker, but after that, I started referring to myself as a creative entrepreneur because I got engaged in a lot of other stuff, particularly the 12 weeks program is one of the best film schools. Sorry, not film school now, business schools I've ever attended. So, but that's not my question. I think, just follow up to what she asked. I think one of the key problems we are having, I'm talking as a creative entrepreneur who is also a filmmaker, right? Is that we don't have, I don't know of any co-production treaties with the United States of America and Nigeria. I don't know of anyone. But I'm well aware that some African countries have such, which is one of the things that are encouraging it. So my question would be, is there a way, as a representative of a government, is there a way you can, the United States government can, have this conversation at the level of Nigerian government to enter into that? Because that is one of the key areas that will begin to encourage this collaboration and ease pathways for co-productions between the two countries. Thank you.
So I have to admit, this is an area I'm not too familiar with. I haven't heard of co-production treaties. Do you mean like bilateral tax treaties, something like that? So this is something that's been mentioned. I used to work in the U.S. Treasury Department, so I know that there are a lot of complexities with negotiating these bilateral tax treaties. But I'm going to ask the question after this trip because it's also come up in another context.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. My name is Chinasa Anuka. Welcome to Nigeria. I hope you've had a great time. I think the other thing to consider in this conversation, right, is creativity is vast, right? So in Nigeria, we have a very developed music industry, a very developed film industry, but there's so many other creative industries that really struggle, and there's so many young people with globally scalable ideas, with comedy, people that want to be the next Oprah, Ziwe, and they really struggle with funding. So I want to know if you guys have any, practical structures in place, initiatives for people like that have the talent, have the drive, but really the barrier to entry is too high for them in money and in network. Thank you very much.
So I think the U.S. government is doing some of these things. I think that obviously the foundation here is an important source of support, and some other areas of the seed capital and venture capital community. I think I'm going to see a little bit more of that later on my trip in Lagos, what the venture capital and startup area looks like. when I was in South Africa, there was I went to a place called the Founders Factory, and they have a model where they combine early stage investments with also some money which they're not looking to earn a return. It's really just money that is going to be spent to help lift up and provide a cushion. That money can be lost, essentially. And I think that with a lot of these early stage enterprises, there's room for both of these things, where you can have capital which is return seeking, but then also capital which is really intended to try to be used to elevate the social goals. And so that's an area of the discussions that I had when I was in South Africa, and will also be an area of discussions here in Lagos.
I think.
Good morning. Check. All right. Good morning. My name is Bovi. I'm an entertainer. I just actually wanted to politely point out to our moderator, right? When it comes to the symbiotic relationship between our industry and Hollywood, I wanted to, like I said, politely let you know that it's the way it came off. It's almost like we are demanding to have, a permanent portion when it comes to Hollywood pictures. I don't think the average Nigerian is about that, if you know what I mean. Do we want to star in Hollywood movies? Absolutely, if the opportunity presents itself. But I don't think as a body we want to compel Hollywood or the execs to say, oh, if you're making a picture, please ensure you consider a Nigerian, because what we need generally as an industry is a functioning system at home. If we make ourselves attractive as sugar, we will attract, the things that like sugar, if you know what I mean. And you also mentioned Black Book as a movie, first Nigerian picture worldwide on the charts. 100% Nigerian picture, if you know what I mean. So as industries, yes, we are open to that kind of partnership, but as that kind of collaboration, but as individuals, we are not in any way making such demands to Hollywood or its execs. Thank you very much.
Thank you. If you know what I mean.
Yeah. I mean, I could mention, I didn't interpret the moderator's comments in this way. What I interpreted as, I can't remember who I should attribute this saying to, but someone has said that talented is fairly evenly distributed, but opportunity is not. And so one of the challenges that we have is to try to make sure that that talent has that opportunity. And so it's really a matter of trying to, again, expose people to the talent that exists in this country, elsewhere on the African continent. And then that talent can speak for itself. And as you pointed out, that no one predicted that Black Book was going to become this hit. It was produced, as you say, here, I think, for $1 million. And which is big budget for the Nigerian market, but for the global market is peanuts. But it's then become success because it had that traction, that resonance. And that's one benefit of this connected world in streaming, that you can have something that, with the right content, if it's given that platform, can catch fire and show the way for others, that it's not an act of charity or compulsion to give an opportunity to Nigerian creators. It's something of mutual benefit. And so that was how I interpreted.
No, I think totally spot on. I think it's all about collaboration, and we've seen that collaboration in business. We've seen it in investment. We've seen it in certain sectors. And I think that's about time we see that in our creative sector as well. As he said, and it's something our founder says very often, talent exists everywhere. But are we burying our Steve Jobs in Nigeria? Are they going to the grave with their ideas? Are we giving them the maximum visibility and platform to realize all the potential that they have? I don't think so. And I think that it's up to us as stakeholders in this ecosystem to ensure that Nigerian talent and African talent have all the global visibility and support that they need to thrive and to continue to expand. So I think that was very well said, Assistant Secretary. Okay, we have more questions. Okay. One more. Okay, two more questions.
I like the persistence.
Two more questions.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Ekene Onu, and I'm actually based in Atlanta, and I run an executive coaching firm focused on high-achieving women of color across the African diaspora. I happen to be in Lagos because we were in Ghana doing a retreat for African-American women. We brought them to Ghana to really experience Africa for the first time and actually hear African wisdom. And so we had that chance to go around and meet African women business owners and hear from them. And so half of my clients, though, are based in West Africa and South Africa. And my question to you, based on actually piggybacking on what the CEO talked about, was this idea of visibility. So I have a lot of knowledgepreneurs and thought leaders in our group, and they're brilliant. And I think if you are building $1 million business in Africa, you actually have a lot more to share than, say, an American entrepreneur. But they're not getting the opportunities to share their wisdom. And even when they're sharing their wisdom, they're not giving the credit. So they come into these places and they're not honored for what they actually have to share. So we have the Steve Jobs, we have the Simon Sineks here, we have brilliant minds here. And what I'd love to hear from you is, what are some of the pathways for visibility, for our wisdom to be exported, not just our entertainment and not just our brains, because our brains are being used all the time, but we're not getting the credit or the compensation.
Well, I mentioned a couple of ideas. One is just all of the ways in which we, the U.S. government, are trying to promote this exchange, whether it's at using the opportunity of the Africa Leaders Summit and having that not just be governments talking, but having our societies speaking to one another, Africans with Americans, with African diaspora in the United States, providing these opportunities like through this International Visitor Leadership Program to have, Africans come to the United States and Nigerians from here coming to the United States and engage with Americans, not only to benefit from the specific knowledge that those Americans working in their industries have, but also so our society can benefit from the knowledge that the entrepreneurs and thought leaders, knowledge leaders, as you say, have. And then the final thing is I would just, again, reference this things like the Secretary's Award for Corporate Excellence, which is provides the opportunity for the U.S. government to use its stage to put a spotlight on the exceptional work that's happening in this continent so that it can become more successful and also can serve as a source of inspiration for others here and also in the United States. So I very much agree with the premise of what you said, and those are some of the ways in which the U.S. government is trying to unlock all of the potential that's embedded in that premise.
So, final question.
Hello. Good morning, everyone. My name is Tochukwu. I work for AVPA. AVPA is African Venture Philanthropy Alliance. We are a network of funders, Pan-African network of funders working to unlock more social capital towards good. I have a question for you. The question would be, and I know that it happens or it's happening in pockets. The question really is, knowing that Africa isn't really short of capital per se, but we need some type of capital that can catalyze the private sector and crowd in the private sector. So for instance, the $100 million that TEF has graciously deployed over the last 9 years, how can we see more of that unlocking X factor in private capital? So if you look at the Sustainable Development Goals or the Sustainable Development Financing Gap, it's less than 10% of the private capital available, globally. So my question to you really is, in a world where aid is declining and largely insufficient, what is the government doing? I mean, the US government, or what can it do from that senior point of view to see that capital is moving from more plain vanilla philanthropy to more catalytic capital that can help crowd in private capital? Thank you.
Well, I very much agree with the premise of this. This is, in the development discourse right now is referred to as blended finance. Mm-hmm. So the idea of there being one component which is, return seeking, mm-hmm. and the other component is willing to be used for the social benefit. And so I mentioned one model in the venture capital area is to have blended finance where you have investors from the private sector that are making the seed capital investments, and then contributions from the official sector, which is intended to essentially subsidize the losses of early stage startups. And so I think that model is extremely important, not only in the startup space, it also has a role to play in larger infrastructure projects, where, again, the social benefit of those is greater than the narrow private sector benefit. And so we've been looking at models not only in our bilateral financing, including through our US Development Finance Corporation, but also the models of the multilateral development banks, on how to basically have blended finance models that recognize that these investments that need to be made have this broader social benefit, and we should be willing to spend some money to achieve that social benefit in partnership with the private sector.
I think that was a befitting last question. Assistant Secretary, it's been an honor hosting you at the Tony Elumelu Foundation. We funded over 18,000 Africans across the continent, trained 1.5 million young Africans. But I think with the US government, as Tochukwu very brilliantly put, will catalyze and unlock even more capital for African entrepreneurs across the continent who are most deserving. Assistant Secretary, was an honor. I think our founder, Mr. Elumelu, I'm gonna put him on the spotlight. Chema, did you want to say anything?
Do you understand? First is let me welcome you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Secretary. Thank you so much for coming. This is welcome. Please sit down. So well done, everyone. Good morning, all. And I think, Samachi, well done to you and your team, too. This is a wonderful gathering. Bobby, look at the time well. Bobby, you won't kill me. You will not. Bobby is one of greatly talented. Oh, you spoke. By the way, the faces I see here, they're all great leaders. I liked your post yesterday or today. Michikwe, right? Yes. Did you see it? You wore a gray dress. I thought it was good. Anyway, we have great stars here. Morning. But two of you look alike. Somehow, okay. One red lipstick, one plain lipstick. But really, it's good to have you here. I like the last comment that was made. Your name Tochukwu. So, in fact, both that I listened to, wonderful. I turned back to look at the voice and the message being conveyed. Very nice. And at your point, I think his point also, in addition to blended capital or finance, what more can the world do? Following the leadership of the US, you're the global leader, to catalyze more entrepreneurship on the continent. realizing that, this seemingly little money, $5,000, $2,000, $1,000, can help people to prove their concept. The people who have here are greatly talented, but they also started from somewhere. And as they intend to move to the next level, we also have many millions who want to come even up to where they started from. I think it's a conversation that should be ongoing, us here and beyond this place, to see, I think, into the first century, and that's the point I think he's making. The donor, by the way, donor funding is not reducing, but the world, we think there's a better way to give. A catalytic way to give, a way to give that makes people fishermen and not just dependent on you feeding them. And that's what we want, and that's what African youth want. African youth greatly talented, but they lack opportunities. And so what we do at the Tony Elumelu Foundation from that place, what can we do in our own little way to help catalyze more prosperity on the continent? And I'm sure U.S. is so aligned too. I've been in fact, yesterday we had a meeting with the Vice President's office, Vice President Kamila's office, about this PDAA, you're aware of it? The Digital Partnership for Digital Intervention for Africa. But what we're discussing now is how to scale it, because the ambition is to touch 500 million lives on the continent. So we need more of such intervention. So U.S. government is wonderful, is helping. I know through the US ADF, we are partnering with US government to support young African entrepreneurs, $20 million. We have a partnership with European Commission, $25 million touching, but we need to do more. And it would be nice if USAID, etc. As he was speaking, I was telling myself, it requires a lot, but let's start the conversation. Let's see how we can touch more lives. So your visit to Nigeria at this time is extremely welcome, symbolic. I want to thank you for making this visit. When you go back, you also share with your colleagues. I've interacted with young Africans, energetic, intelligent, ambitious. You talked about SDG. They want to change the world, but they need support. So please, let's work together to make it happen. Have I spoken your voice? Yes. Your position? All right, but guys, let me also talk to you people. Say, well done, each and every one of you. You're doing great and amazing things. And let's not give up. Some of us go, Mr. Ingrid, how are you? Some of us are where we are today, not because we're the most intelligent, not because we're the most talented, but just we're products of luck, being at the right place at the right time, and equally importantly, a product of hard work. So please keep striving. Don't give up. Congratulations for what you've accomplished so far. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman. I think we'll just have quick photos. Fego, do you want to direct that for 2 seconds? Yes, very quick photos.
No, it's working. Okay, so we'd like to take pictures. Can everyone make sure they're as visible as possible? So you can fill out the spaces. Just try. Don't worry, we're still going to take more pictures. Okay. So Mr. Elumelu is going to take pictures with everyone. Deshola, we can't see you. Come closer. Okay. Don't worry, everyone is going to have the chance to get into the pictures, so we're going to take it in batches.